So, Dr. Bernadette, why did you write Fulfilled?
So, fulfilled is a lived experience. So, I feel like I'm not just the author, but the book was doctor tested by me. I understood that we had a very narrow view of health and it wasn't working. At least it wasn't working for me and it wasn't working for my patients. So, fulfilled is taking into account the mind, the body, and the spirit. And that's the way we have to see health. We're not just a physical being, we're a whole person encompassing a mind, body, and spirit, and they all interact. So if you're having a physical problem, you have to look deep and say, where is this coming from? For instance, if you have high blood pressure, is it a result of not sleeping well? Is it a result of not getting enough exercise or not eating properly? So there's so many elements that come into health, and we cannot just look at the person as a disease process or um, just look at the physical aspects of health. And I wrote Fulfilled because I had so many things that were challenging me. For instance, I dealt a lot with unforgiveness, and it was showing up in my life and showing up physically in my life as well. So I know that I needed to delve deeper so that I could avoid things like having anxiety and depression as a result of this unforgiveness. So I encourage my patients to take a broader perspective when they're talking about their health and don't just hone in on the actual disease state.
So, in your opinion, why is it that most people live a fulfilled life? What is it about them that limits them from living a full, fulfilled life?
I think one of the things that stops them is they don't define what that means. You know, we always talk about we want to be happy, we want to be more fulfilled, but if you ever really ask people what does that mean, they don't know. They start to ponder, to think about it. And in order to live a fulfilled life, you need to have that definition, that personal definition of what it means to you. And so then there are other things because it's multifaceted when you're talking about living a fulfilled life. And so there could be some internal factors like you're not sleeping well, unhealthy habits can keep you from being fulfilled. You can also be feeling overwhelmed or stressed, and those things can keep you from being fulfilled. So we have to address what's really going on with us internally and externally. You know, we are under so much pressure to live our lives a certain way. And I think we can get caught in that trap. I did. I felt stuck for a while, but I had to define what living fulfilled meant to me. And when I was able to do that, then I could start to live a more fulfilling life.
Yes, and besides fulfilled life, you talk about the whole life.
Yes. Yes. That's really important. Because again, I said this a little bit earlier, we always think about our physical self, but we are not just a physical being. And we have to live in harmony with our mind and our body and our spirit. And we need to be purposeful about this. And so, I often, challenge patients, to see their whole self and to nurture and take care of the whole person. Because if you neglect any aspect of your being, then it could have a negative impact on other aspects of your well-being.
And why do you recommend people being imperfected? Why do you go
Embracing
for
their imperfections.
imperfection?
Yeah, because I think you actually talked about this at a conference that I attended, and to embrace our imperfections. We're not a perfect being, and I spent a lot of time and often felt myself going in circles because I wanted to create perfection, but it will keep you from living the life you deserve to live. You need to embrace who you are, and we're not perfect. And by letting that go and giving yourself permission to just be, to be you, whoever that you is, you will live a much happier life by doing so.
And you know, you have an amazing book because it really helps you in every single way. But one of the things that I know many people suffer with is their relationship with food.
Mhm.
You know, how we never quite eat the way we should or could, or I don't know how you describe it, but that relationship is so important because that's how we live, by what we eat.
Right. I think the thing for me is understanding why you're eating. I did a lot of eating that had nothing to do with feeding the physical body because I did a lot of emotional eating. I think a lot of us do that. We look for food for more than it's intended for. It's the fuel, it is to help us live healthy. But when you abuse it and you use it to deal with emotions and to deal with loneliness and to deal with neglect, then it becomes a problem. You could find yourself facing obesity. For me, I had to face what was underneath that weight. What was I truly dealing with, and what was I trying to suffocate or smother by eating? And so I think a lot of times I see patients not wanting to deal with why they are eating. It's easy to say, I just like carbs, or, I just like certain foods. And it's okay to have foods in moderation. But when we overeat, when we are significantly overweight, then we have to ask ourselves, why? Why am I eating? And what am I trying to use the food for?
That's easier said than done,
Yes.
as you can tell. And I
Yes.
appreciate in the book, you really go into detail and you help people on that path. Because it's one thing for, oh yeah, I'm overweight and this and that, but you have a pathway in your book that you really push in that kind of direction to go through that. And
Yeah.
there's a quote, and you have many wonderful quotes. One by Dr. Gabriel Cousins is,
Yes.
there is never enough food for the hungry soul. So, and I think in a way, he's saying not food to eat necessarily, looking at it a different way, but you also go into it understanding comprehensive food,
Yes.
which is not just what we eat, it's what we put in our head and our brain and everything else, just like he said.
Absolutely. And I can attest to that because there really isn't enough food for the hungry soul. I've tried that before. And you're trying to eat to deal with and solve problems, and it never happens. And when we deal with, the mental and the spiritual aspect of why we're doing things, I think we can get more you become more aware of who you are and why you are eating. Um, Again, like I said earlier, eating is really just a fuel for us so that we can live our best lives. And if we're using it to sort of suffocate those things or sort of distract us from the real problems, then it becomes an issue. And we easily can fall into that trap. I did for years. And even every day, I have to ask myself, why are you eating? Are you hungry? If you're not hungry, think of some other things you can do. Perhaps this is a good time to do some meditation. Perhaps this is some good time to do journaling if you're lonely. So, understanding why you're eating and then addressing those with more mindful practices can definitely help you.
And the other thing, I think you help your readers so much in so many ways to them understand what it is about that's holding them back. Why is it that they're not functioning at their top level? Why is it that they're capable? They have an IQ that's high. They have an intelligence and they're able and financially okay. But they don't go there. They don't go and get to the very best. And you have to think that they don't take an active role, especially in their health. And you would say, what's the most important thing for me is my health.
Mhm.
Why are they not active? Why isn't they not doing the exercise they're supposed to be doing and eating the right food? They know what it is. Why is it? What's holding them back?
Well, Dr. Murad, I think we all subscribe to this I'm too busy.
Mhm.
And when I wrote for Phil 52 prescriptions for healing health and happiness, one of the things that I wanted to make sure was that the book was not just storytelling, but story engaging. I wanted to give people some tools right now so that they can get into action and take better care of themselves and not procrastinate because we've gone to many seminars, lectures and retreats, but we don't do anything with that information. And so I designed this book so that you can read the chapter, have a prescription and get started on taking action because life isn't just happening to you, whether you're making a conscious choice or making a being passive, you are still making a decision. So I really encourage people to be active when it comes to their health, when it comes to their life.
Yeah, I really love your book because if people really read it and understood it, it would be amazing. And you help them along the path. And one of the things I really like about it is what you call your basic needs. Can you tell us
Yes,
about that?
yes. So when it comes to the basic B's, and that's in terms of living your life in harmony, and there's several of them, but I always want to encourage people first is just become you. Decide who you are and stop living your life according to someone else's agenda. And then the other thing is what we just talked about, begin now. Stop waiting, like, oh, I'm going to do that when this happens. I did that for a long time. I'm going to do that once I finish medical school. I'm going to do that once I complete residency. I'm going to do that once I become an attending. So everything just keeps being pushed further and further out, but you can begin now. And I encourage people to create balance. You know, we often sometimes we either become workaholics or we go to the other extreme. But to find that sweet spot is so important. And to set boundaries. And that was a big one for me because we set boundaries, but maintaining boundaries is a different beast because it's hard to stick to what we set. But so I always tell people if you believe in what your boundary is, it's easier to stick to it. And I encourage people to breathe. Just take a deep breath. One of the things I do in my office that I just love is I just take moments to do the 4-7-8 breathing technique. And it just helps me reset my day and to help me stay focused and be present so that I'm not worrying about what happened yesterday or what's going to happen tomorrow. Just be present. And then I tell people to be proactive. Again, we just talked about, not just being passive and being present, and then broaden your thinking. You can think outside of the box. I remember when I came to one of your first retreat that I came to, and you did the art therapy, and you gave us these coloring pages, and we were all coloring so neatly within the lines. And you kind of sort of asked the question, like, why? Why are you staying in the lines? And I thought, well, I thought that's what we're supposed to do. But then you gave us permission to just let that 2-year-old self come out and just paint all over the the
Mhm.
the space. And it was just so amazing how our attitudes changed and how engaged we became in that activity after that.
Yeah.
So again, broaden your thinking and think outside the box.
You know, what I love about your book, I think you could almost say people don't need a health book if they have your book. If you don't have fulfilled, then you're missing something. You have a very comprehensive way of looking at this overall picture of health, and you help people along the way with different opportunities, different ways of dealing with it, and make it simple. So I would say I think you really our job as a doctor is to help our patients live healthier, happier, more fulfilling lives. And you really go to the comprehensive approach, not just, oh, you need to eat more vegetables, and we all know that, you need to exercise more, all of that. But you make it a way so easy and so way by following your rules and recommendations, I can make a big difference in my life. And we all have an opportunity to make changes in our lives that can make a big difference. And sometimes when we're at the lowest and when we're doing the least, we kind of don't know what to do with ourselves. And sometimes with reading your book, it pulls you up higher to know what to do, to take care of yourself better in a simple way, easy to read.
Yes. And that was one of my intentions, Dr. Murad. I wanted to have it in a conversational tone. I want the reader to feel like I'm there with them because I have been there with them. Every lesson, every prescription in that book is something I've lived. It is, or that, or some of them are experiences from my patients, but I've lived this. So it's not something that I'm guessing that will work. It's something that I know will work. Those prescriptions really changed my life.
Yeah. I can tell people go get fulfilled. That will teach you how to live a happier, healthier life.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for making that book available. I think you're going to help so many more people as they read that book and realize what they're missing, how they can live happier lives and healthier lives.